So let's come back to the main program.cs file here, and if we come down to the bottom, recall that we added this process directory method. This method is called when we want to process a directory full of files. If we come up here, we can see this process directory method is called if the command line parameter is --dir, and when the user specifies that they want to process a directory, they also need to specify the type of files that they want to process. So let's come back to the process directory method and we'll add some code here. If we wanted to get a list of all of the file names in a specified directory, for example into an array of strings, we can make use of a method on the directory class, and that's the getFiles method. As a parameter to this method, we need to specify the path where the files are located. In the case of this method here, it's the directory path that was passed into the method. So you can use this overload of the getFiles method to get all of the files regardless of the file name extensions. In the application that we're building here, this is not actually what we want. We only want to get a list of files based on what files the user wants to process. So let's just remove this line of code, and we'll add a switch statement, switching on the file type that the user has specified. In the application we're building here, the user's not going to specify the type of file by using a file name extension. They're going to specify one of a known set of options. The first of which is text files, so at the command line the user can choose the option text. So if the user wants to process only text files, once again we can make use of the getFiles method and pass in the directory path, but this time we're going to use an overload of the getFiles method which allows us to specify a search pattern. This search pattern is a string, and it also may contain wildcard characters such as asterisks and question marks. In our case here we're going to use the asterisk wildcard because we don't care about the actual file name, we only care about the extension, in this case files that end .txt. So now this text files variable will contain a list of all of the files with a .txt extension. We can now loop through each of these files, create a new file processor, passing in the file path, and then calling the process method. And as the default block for this switch statement, we just write out an error message that the file type is not supported. Let's build this to make sure we haven't introduced any errors, and the build succeeds. We'll head back to File Explorer. We'll delete the backup and complete directories, just so we're starting with a clean slate, and this time we're going to copy data 1, data 2, data 3, and also data 4 to the input directory here. So now we've got 3 text files and 1 .data file to be processed. Let's head back to Visual Studio. But before we run the application this time, we want to come back up to the debug properties, and we want to change the command line arguments here. Rather than --file, we now want to specify --dir. We're not going to specify an individual file name here. Rather, we need to specify the directory. We also need to specify a third argument now. In this case, the type of file that we want processing. In this case, it's text files. So now we've updated the command line arguments, we can go and run this modified application. And we can see this time that we've selected the input directory for text files. And we've actually processed 3 files now, data1.txt, data2.txt, and data3.txt. Let's just hit enter to quit, and head back to File Explorer. Notice in the input folder, data4.data hasn't been processed because it didn't have a .txt extension. And in the completed directory, we've got data1, data2, and data3 complete.